Hello and welcome once again to Red Gaming Tech for your daily dose of your latest gaming news and myself, Amata. Today is the 14th of November and this time I'm bringing you some interesting news for Need for Speed Rivals, which is of course a cross-platform next generation game, and it is actually one of the first games to be officially confirmed to be achieving a 1080p native resolution across both the Xbox One and the PS4. Now, obviously, several high-profile next-gen launch games have been confirmed to be running at different resolutions across the platforms, with Battlefield 4 weighing in at 900p on the PS4 as opposed to the Xbox One 720p, while that Infinity Ward stated that Call of Duty Ghosts will be running at 720p on the Xbox One, while the PS4 version is being rendered at a native 1080p. What's interesting though is that Battlefield 4 uses the same engine as Need for Speed Rivals, which is of course the Frostbite 3. And the creative director at Ghost, who is of course the developers behind Need for Speed Rivals, who goes by the name of Craig Sullivan, who was formerly the creative director at Criterion, said that it's too early to make a call on next-gen platforms or to say whether one's easier to develop for than the other. And he told Eurogamer at a recent press event, quote, "Each has its own challenges, I think. Ask me that same question in 2 years and people will be able to give you a real answer. Right now, the consoles aren't even out, and people are trying to say this about development and that about development. The thing is, they're both very different to develop for, and they both have their quirks. And I'm sure they'll both be reviewed side by side, and people will put our games side by side on both platforms. I know Battlefield's getting a lot of that. For the first wave of launch software, I think people who are saying it's particularly easy or particularly hard on one, it changes depending on the game and depending on the engine. I don't think you can say this one is better than that one because I don't think we know enough about them yet, to be honest." So it has also been confirmed by Digital Foundry that Need for Speed Rivals will be running natively at 1080p on both consoles, and a face-off between the two versions will be happening soon, supposedly. So the only real test for that one is the frame rate, I suppose, whether they're both running at 60 or what have you. I would imagine that they are, but it's interesting to me that Need for Speed Rivals is using the same engine as Battlefield 4, but of course Battlefield 4 is only 900p on the PS4 and then 720p on the Xbox One, and yet we have Need for Speed Rivals achieving a native 1080p on both platforms. Now, that obviously tells you one thing: it's less intensive than Battlefield 4. Battlefield 4 is one of the most gorgeous looking games I've seen in a long time. It may not be my cup of tea gameplay wise, but I don't think anyone can deny that the graphics for that game are nothing short of beautiful, and the textures and all of that are just amazing. And when you see it played at max on, say, for example, the PC, it just honestly looks stunning. Not to say that Need for Speed Rivals that looks bad, just that perhaps it's not quite as intensive in terms of the amount of polygons or what have you than as Battlefield 4, and isn't achieving quite the same insane level of fidelity, which is not, a criticism against Need for Speed. It's more a nod of respect towards Battlefield 4 and the excellent job that was done to get it looking so very nice, and of course upgrading it from Battlefield 3. So it just remains interesting that we're having so much disparity between the two consoles and the versions of the same game. So it's nice to see finally that one game has managed to achieve 1080p across both. So I think that Craig kind of has the right of it here. It will differ from a game-to-game basis. Some people have said the Xbox One is easy to develop for. Some people have said that the PS4 is easy to develop for. We keep going back and forth with indie developers speaking up, and then you've got the big-name developers speaking up, and each has a different opinion. Well, that's because of the reason that Craig already stated. It depends on your engine. It depends on the game. An indie developer isn't going to push the console to its absolute maximum most of the time. It's going to be using less polygons. It's going to perhaps have a more simplistic graphic style, but have a good aesthetic or what have you, just because they don't have the budget of the AAA games to come out with hyper extreme awesome textures or whatever. And so they might find it easier to develop for on certain platforms, or just easier to develop generally speaking, because they're not worrying as much about resolution, frame rate, textures and all of that. But even AAAs that can't seem to agree on which one is better to develop for, And of course, it entirely comes down to your engine. Some engines just might get on better with one console, some games even might get on better with one console. It really remains to be seen. I don't think that we're going to be seeing a proper answer as to which one is easier to develop for until at least like a year into the cycle of the next generation, which of course is fast approaching, is about a week away for you guys in the US. So we're going to be getting into that time soon, but it remains to be seen which one is truly more powerful or truly better to develop for in terms of the next generation. Only the future can tell us these answers. At the moment, it's basically pure speculation based on the facts that we know of each console and of course the opinions of developers working for these consoles. So just remains to be seen, but it's nice to give some good news regarding the parity between versions for a next generation title. Anyway, that is me done for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.